What a battle we've just witnessed between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton in the Bahrain Grand Prix. It was a throwback to the old days when the pair were at McLaren, with Alonso attempting what only he and perhaps Max Verstappen would try, let alone pull off. Alonso would of course go on to take third place and a spot on the podium due to the Aston Martin's superior tyre management and Charles Leclerc retiring with an engine issue. But nonetheless, that AMR 23 is a serious piece of machinery in the hands of Alonso. But what his battles with Sainz and Hamilton in particular show are the strengths and weaknesses of all three of these cars. And in this video, we'll be discussing where each of these lie and how it helped Alonso pull off such audacious moves on a 7-time world champ. But before we do, if you're enjoying this video and you're new around here, consider subscribing to the channel for more Formula One videos throughout each of the remaining 22 Grand Prix weekends and all the latest and greatest news stories as they drop. I will also be running a competition throughout the next Grand Prix weekend where 3 subscribers to the channel will win teamwear from their favourite Formula One team. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel before the end of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend. Be on the lookout for that. Right, on with today's analysis. What stood out in the battle between Alonso and Hamilton is how much more confidence Alonso has on the brakes in that particular braking zone, as well as in turn 1 and turn 7. This is a trait of the Aston Martin's AMR 23 which we can see throughout a race distance as well as on a qualifying run, and this is where it gave Alonso a huge advantage going into that corner. Now, a second string to the strength of the AMR 23 is its superior tyre management to that of the Mercedes, something we could clearly see throughout a race simulation from FP2, which I will now bring up for you to go over very briefly. So as you can see, there's a better race pace, which we naturally saw throughout today's race, but also the tyre degradation that we can see in this picture also highlights the fact that at that particular moment in time, Alonso most likely had slightly better tyres, albeit of course we already have to add into the fact he was on 4-lap fresher tyres at that point in time as well. And then add into the fact that the AMR 23 also has better traction in those kind of braking zones as well over that of the W14. And this just enabled Alonso to really do something that I don't think Hamilton had any inkling was going to happen. You can almost see Hamilton's about to take his normal racing lane into that corner, then has to back out because obviously Alonso and the AMR 23 is already alongside him, and that just gives Alonso such an advantage going in and out of that corner because of course we're in a DRS detection zone and he has DRS along that straight to further move away from Hamilton. And of course this is a trend that very much continues along with when Alonso finally dispatches Sainz and moves into P3 and the podium position. Because of course that's another thing the Ferrari SF23 is really known for already. It's a tyre eater. It reminds me of the kind of Mercedes W03 back in 2012. That particular car at the beginning of the season was extremely strong in a qualifying situation, but when it came to race day and tyre preservation, it may have had outright pace, but it was a tyre eater. It would just eat the tyres constantly throughout every stint in a race, and this left them on the back foot against the competitors. And I can remember the Sauber of that year would just eat up the Mercedes because of that fact. And this is something that the Ferrari team for this year and its SF23 have to really pay a lot of thought and consideration to, because they're going to have major issues at every track when it comes to tyre management, because they are nowhere near at the level of Aston Martin, let alone Red Bull. And as you can see here is the GPS data from yesterday's Bahrain Grand Prix qualifying session, and we have the top 3 teams and driver combinations from that. So what's really interesting, and it's something I've been saying throughout this video, is the fact that the AMR 23 in the hands of Alonso is extremely powerful under the main braking phases across this circuit. So turn 1, the fast left-hander going into sector 3 and the right-hander coming out of the opening part of sector 3, and in the extremely slow corner as we get into the second or third straight on the circuit. So this showcases two things when it comes to the AMR 23, where it has its strength over that of its competitors. Number one, you can be really confident under braking, so Alonso and Stroll will have an advantage over any of the other cars in the field. And then secondly, coming out of the corner, it's all about traction, and so this showcases the car has very good traction as well. And this is where it enabled Alonso to have such an advantage over Hamilton and Sainz in a race, situation when they were battling one another, because number one, Alonso had fresher tyres, as I've stated. Number two, the car is very powerful under braking. And these are things you need in these particular parts of the track, because this is where overtaking gets done. And the fact that it's the strongest in the field will just enable Alonso and Stroll to have an advantage in the early part of the season. And it should be really interesting to see how the AMR 23 does at, say, Monaco, because that track is all about braking confidence and, of course, traction in each of these zones. So I think the AMR 23 in the hands of Alonso in particular should be a handful and a real competitive car driver combination when we get there. And hopefully when they update and create developments for its floor, because the floor is still very simplistic, this should further enhance all the strengths of this car while also negating any weaknesses that it may have currently. Right guys, this is the end of the video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, leave a comment down below on anything you've picked up upon or any comments you have about the race and these two battles in particular. And I will catch you all in some more Formula One videos in the week.